everybody. Welcome back to Dat Fury Radio. I'm Howie Howard from Mr. Furious Records. Joined once again, third time's the charm. Wait, that's when two have gone bad. That's not what I meant. Third time's a good one.
I think the analogy we're looking for is the hat trick. We're here for the
hat trick.
Yes.
The hat trick. Sports metaphor. 5-second sportscast. Here and gone. I'm Howie Howard, joined again by Royce Diamond. What's up, Royce?
How you doing?
And Rob Spector. How are you, Rob?
What's shaking, y'all? Great to see you.
I love what's shaking as a question, as an alternative to what's up. That's great. We're completing the hat trick of the round robin of questions, and this week Royce has questions for me, and I also am saying out loud I've got some little follow-up things and loops to close at the end of the show, however far we get with Royce's questions. So Royce, what have you got for me?
All right. So we're not going to do AI. So my question for you is, what's something about yourself that you've been intentionally evolving? Something you've just thought like, and it doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
Just curious.
Well, here's the first thing that immediately jumped to mind because it's been heavy on my mind the past few weeks, and it is musical. It happens to be musical. I've been recording a lot of lead guitar, which is new for me. Have never been, Rob can attest, not a lead guitarist. Never played solos really or anything with one note at a time, or I played chords, maybe a riff here or there.
To be fair, your chord selection is also gnarly. Like, you're not just doing like power chords. You have
I played weird chords.
You played super weird chords all the time.
But yeah, I'm wrapping up now lead guitar as part of a years-long recording process for a giant project called Jam My Wave, Don't Jam My Wave. And honestly, I was headed to work the other day listening to a demo of like my next, I'm going like one song at a time, and I was just thinking about the 404 and the sampler and because that is what unlocked lead guitar playing for me. It was what was a couple of the different sampler projects, Frog on the King's Head, and I'm blanking on my own other album title I'm trying to think of right now, but playing rock music, playing with Drew and everything, it was way too intimidating to try to play lead guitar or play a solo.
Well, especially when you're playing next to Drew.
Yeah.
like it's tough.
Not a small factor.
So good.
But on the sampler, when I would just need, a phrase, or it didn't have to be 16 bars of improvisation, but just to have a little riff to make a sample out of, to plug in 2 bars. Okay, I can kind of figure that out. And then that became, well, maybe I could do 4 bars or kind of carry a section, go back and forth with a vocal and do fills. And it was really playing guitar with the sampler that helped me find my own voice and grow into a way of playing lead guitar. And it's my own way. It's not super fast. It's not super technical or anything like that, but it works for my songs, I hope. And that's something that over the last 5 years I have really, it started by accident. I just needed a layer to put on the sampler songs, and I got my delay pedals out and messed around, and in the course of creating textures and layers and small phrases and samples, I backed my way into a more normal way of playing lead.
Hmm. Hmm. I mean, was that something you always wanted to do, and you just didn't do it, or what was different about the drum machine scenario than any of your other projects?
There wasn't that pressure. There was no other guitarist. There was no. At the start, the sections were very short, so I didn't need to carry, 8 or 16 bars. And also, like, the sonic environment was really important, right? Because it wasn't a rock context. So there wasn't an expectation in my own ears that it has to sound like a big, slash guitar solo, heroic, thing. It could be weird. The notes could be weird. The sounds could be weird. The space between the notes could be weird. In the context of the sampler, I found the freedom I needed to make my own thing.
I'm sorry for interrupting. Can I ask, because I've never used a 404, is it chromatic? Or do you set a key and so most everything you'll hit will be, it may not be right, but it will at least be in key? Is that...
Each pad is whatever you put onto it. So a pad can be as simple as a snare drum hit, or as complicated as a 15-minute long, fully mastered song. Okay. It's just a wave file. On the old one, there's a chromatic pitch shift. So if you want to move something up by 2 half steps, you can do that. Kind of. It's not real great sounding. On the new one, you can play a sample chromatically, so it's just one sample, and it will pitch shift live, and you can lock that to a key or play it literally chromatically, or there's some more options there. But fundamentally, each pad is a wave file.
Gotcha. Will it quantize for you? Will it keep you on tempo? Or
if you want,
I'm asking about nannies. Like, are there any nannies on it that perhaps allowed you to feel more expressive without, fear of hitting a wrong note or hitting it at the wrong time?
No, that wasn't a piece of it, because by the time I was adding guitar, like, drums were in place, structure was roughly in place. I had a piece going, or it wouldn't be done, but fairly well developed. And I just needed to add sounds to it, add decoration, add headphone candy. I was always very comfortable with pitch and time on the 404 with a drum background and, turning quantize on and off and whatever for that. I tend to, you won't be surprised with my background, but coming to it as more of a, rock and band background, I tend to perform large chunks. So instead of having like a bass note that I play back at different pitches and do different things with, I will just write the bass line in my head and I will just perform the 2 bars or however long it is as one sample, almost like a stem instead of like an individual hit.
Okay, gotcha. And so that's connected. I mean, is that connected to a sequencer?
Yeah, I use the sequencers. I did a few songs on the SX with the resample method for the whole song, which is a way of making a full track without using the sequencer. But for the most part, I use the sequencers.
Got you. And this album that you're working on with that, what's the name of it?
Well, the album I'm working on is a straight up rock and roll album, not dealing with the 404. Gotcha. It's called Jam My Wave.
Okay.
And it's a double album plus B-sides. That's been the massive, like, in the background of everything else I'm doing. I've been working on that for like 2.5 years now, and I probably crossed the halfway mark, but there's still a lot to go. Drums are done, bass is done, rhythm guitar is done, lead guitar is almost done. So then it'll be keys, vocals, guest spots, and then mix and master.
So what you're doing with the 404 is practice?
No, I'm talking about records I've made and released or will be releasing soon. So Frog on the King's Head is a 404 the one record I've made.
Where you're playing lead and you're playing the 404?
Yeah, like the song is produced within the 404.
Oh, the whole song is. Okay.
Yeah. And then I'm making guitar samples or tracks onto the 404, like direct recording.
And are there vocals?
Mm-hmm. There are on Frog on the King's Head. I think almost every song.
Does that change, like, you playing lead like that? Does that change, like, the lyrics you write or the way you perform those lyrics? Or do you, I mean, how does it intertwine with your lyrics? Since it's lead, it's kind of, I mean, it's like a lead vocal, basically, right?
Yeah. I never thought about that before. I don't feel like it's changed. So in my process, vocals would come before lead guitar because I want to play as little lead guitar as possible. I want to keep it to a minimum because that's the scary part. Vocals I'm comfortable with, so I'll have the idea, arrange it so I know what all the parts are going to be, and then like flesh it out, whether that's programming the drums or recording them, making the bass sample or recording a full bass track or whatever it is. And I may not have recorded the final vocal performance. So like with the Jam My Wave rock project, I'm recording the lead guitars. There's a scratch vocal in there, but not the final vocal. But I know, like, the lyrics are done, the melodies are done. I know exactly what the final vocal is going to be.
Gotcha. And
the whole arrangement is based around that and having kind of the minimum. This is meant to be moderately appealing. So, like, I want as much vocal as possible. Basically, it's not Taylor Swift, but it's vocal forward. So the arrangement is to support the vocal, and any types of solos or breaks or instrumental sections are, I'm a little indulgent, but I contain those. I don't want those to go on too long for this project. This is about songs and vocals and choruses, and everything's got to support that.
Okay.
Do you feel, how different do you think this feels from other MS Ride stuff now that you're intentionally leaving room for leads, perhaps in a way that you were not?
Well, I'm used to leaving room for leads because I leave them for Scott.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you played with Scott, you played with Drew, you've made songs where there's a section of lead that you're handing off effectively to another artist. And a lot of those would go on for a long time. Like when you think of Blues or Astro Blue. Oh, sure. And the theme of that song is probably the most important part of the song. You're effectively handing that out to Scott. And one thing I've always seen with the MS Ride stuff is those sections are not very long at all. Like they're all, like there's not like a long instrumental break. That was always like the hallmark of the stuff that you did with Scott and the stuff that you did with Drew. Do you feel like you're creating more space for that now that you're developing the skill?
Or a different kind of space?
I'm keeping it pretty tight, more in line with previous MS Ride or with V for Voice.
Okay.
In a way, this is kind of the follow-up to V for Voice in terms of like a grand, like the big Technicolor production, right? Scott's done one track for me so far, absolutely crushed it. I've got more spaces that could be for him, but it really just depends on his time. And I've ended up, I'm having a challenge getting stuff back from collaborators a little more, and I think it's just people are at different places in life. So I had originally intended these lead parts to be much more guest, like fight songs. But as I've been challenged getting things back from people, and I've been having more success than I anticipated with my own playing. I've just been filling a bunch of them myself. And that's been an intentional and sometimes hard decision every time. A lot of times I've kind of listened to something for a week or two and thought about, is this do I really need friend X, Y, or Z on this? Or do I have a worthy idea of my own? And I've gone both ways on it. There's a song I can only think of the working title right now, which is "What Would Scott Weiland Do?" But that song, is out.
Let's not take that to its ultimate conclusion.
No. The context there was a vocal melody. That was the key that unlocked, and it didn't end up sounding that much like Stone Temple Pilots. But for some reason, I had been sitting with the instrumental demo for a long, long time, just at a brick wall trying to write a vocal. And what unlocked it, I was thinking of different singers, and just one tiny part of one of the riffs in one moment as I was sitting at work, like kind of sounded like Stone Temple Pilots. And I was just like, oh, I've never tried that before. I wonder what would happen if I tried to channel Scott Weiland for a second. And that did end up being a productive path and eventually resulting in the melody. It didn't end up sounding like Stone Temple Pilots. It was just a key that unlocked that particular.
But you did end up being addicted to heroin afterwards.
Yeah. You know me. What was the question there?
I was just asking, was there something in your life that you were intentionally evolving?
Oh, the original question.
Through, yeah. Is that what you were asking for just now?
Oh no, there was a much more recent part of that question that I've lost track of, which is totally fine. Oh, it was about guests. So that song is currently out for a guest bass spot, which I'm tremendously excited about. It's Danny Lang from the original 5 Star Crush.
Oh wow!
But that is one of the more expansive, layery solo. There's more time. Whatever the solo layers end up being, they're going to coexist with the end vocal. Like it's kind of it's a long song, big ending. And that's one where I still feel very much like that's got to be Drew, I think. I can't see myself pulling that off. I'm much better at contained, 4 bars. Okay, I can come up with something. Because I'll start maybe improvising or like fooling around with a scale or whatever, but I will compose what the lead part is going to be. And if you heard my takes, it's the same idea. I'm just trying to execute it properly. Like where if Drew does a solo, a lot of times the takes are completely different from each other because he's really like improvising with the mics on. I'll goof around to get an idea, but then I will refine that idea and basically get it down to something fully written and then try to execute it.
Okay. You said you've been doing that for 2 years? Like the lead?
This project?
Like focusing on lead. You've been doing that for 2 years?
Oh, no. I've only been doing that this year since January or February, maybe.
Have you made any other music?
Oh, yeah. I made a synth record. I'm building a synthesizer. There's all kinds of other stuff going on. I never work on one thing at a time. It's always 6 projects at once.
Did that change anything else in your production? Just having to focus on, you're exercising a different skill. I would imagine it had some implication somewhere else, right?
As far as lead guitar, changing other things?
Just the way you think about your compositions.
This is a great chance to talk. To mention the experiment of getting the 404, the original SX that I got in like 2020. That has succeeded beyond my wildest dreams. The smaller part is the actual music I've made on it. The bigger part is how it's affected my brain, how it's affected my ears, how much more creative it's made me in terms of opening up my imagination to what a part, so I've got a song and I've got 4 bars I need to fill with something. What could go in there? 5 years ago, my only answers were Scott or Drew. But now I can think of so many other possibilities. I mean, those are still my favorite, kind of. But the way the 404 specifically and sampling in general has expanded my imagination is so incredible. That's why I was interested in it. I hoped something like that would happen. I couldn't really see or anticipate what it would mean. But I felt like there was something there, and there sure was. It's been fantastic. I'm so grateful.
Just the way it makes you create, like how it changes your workflow.
Yes, and just the blank canvas of it, that freedom combined with total artistic freedom is typically kind of scary and intimidating for me. But somehow the 404 encourages and embraces experimentation and mistakes, and the way that lopsided drums in part kind of come from devices like that, and the way that like some kind of terrible a performance, a bass part or a guitar part that's like technically a mistake or not played right or whatever, but you chop it right, all of a sudden it's perfect and it's genius.
I got you. Okay.
So that type of different, just completely different angle on music making and imagining and hearing what makes good music to me. Maybe technical proficiency isn't the thing that makes it good. Maybe executing the original idea isn't the thing that makes it good. Maybe producing it in a way that sounds natural, like you're in the room with a band, that might not be the thing that makes it sound good. It just blew all those expectations and assumptions out the door, and that's a freedom and a way of imagining that I've been able to bring into other types of music.
Okay. How about you, Rob?
How am I doing?
That was great. That's actually, what I was kind of looking for was like what has been like something that's been a catalyst to change in your life, and how did it manifest? Was it accident? How intentional was it? And how is it filtered into everything else that you do in your life?
Wow. It's crazy that you got that kind of transformation from gear. Like, rare thing. Like, you think of all the gear you've bought in your entire life. Probably the only thing that produced that was that first PC that you put Pro Tools on. Like,
yeah,
probably.
It stands with that in terms of influence. And while I love the 404, it's not to some extent it's about that specific piece of gear, but in general I think it's about sampling. And I think other samplers could have done the same thing in their own way. I do highly recommend the 404 as something really accessible and fun, but I don't think it had to be that specific sampler. I think it was sampling in general.
Wow. Incredible.
Yeah. It brings it all the way back to AI.
Yeah. Everybody go get a sampler.
Get a sampler.
And just start having fun. Well, this is okay. So I wanted to close a couple loops we opened way back in the best music we heard 2024. One of my own, which is that I complained on that show that Pitchfork's top 50 included tons of records they had not even reviewed during the year. I was wrong about that. I did go back. I looked at the archives, and I got 15 or 20 deep, and they all were in there. So that's my mistake. still don't recognize hardly any of the artists, but that's a separate bone to pick.
Old buddy, that might not be fault.
You might be onto something there. I do think there's a drastic change with the ownership change.
Yeah, there is.
But I do think you're onto something there. And
there's a little generative AI happening.
Possibly. But I was incorrect in complaining that the top 50 included records that they hadn't even reviewed. The other, and I don't know how far you want to go into this, Rob, but we teased your story about why you hate Celine Dion.
Oh.
So I wondered if you wanted to go out on that.
Oh, man. It's long, though. It's
okay,
long.
Should we save it? We could just tease it again.
It's long. It is Celine Dion's dedication to delivering for her audience is probably the worst among any major professional musician you have ever heard. And my mother is her biggest fan of all time and has been the biggest recipient of disappointment due to Celine Dion's incapability to deliver on her commitments. But it takes like 30 minutes to tell the story. It's very funny, but I'm definitely happy to do it another time.
Next time. We've already got 2/3 of the next show written, so that's great. Fellas, anything to plug?
Go to MrFuriousRecords.bandcamp.com.
Like, share, subscribe.
Yes.
Mr. Furious, and I was right last week, DaturaRecords.bandcamp.com. It's been a while. I need to reach out to Sean again, but since we don't talk about him enough, I'm looking forward to talking about him more. Jump back, Milk Drops, some recommendations off the Datura page. Milk Drops, we're all adults here. Milk's amazing. Just another great record from him. Approaches Ultra Proteus 20th Anniversary Edition. Really interesting. So actually, separate from the pod, I wasn't planning on making this pod, but just last week, I put the original Ultra Proteus and the 20th Anniversary on my phone, and I renamed the tracks so the old and the new would appear back to back.
Oh, wow.
And I did a deep listen, and it was really interesting because on the 20th Anniversary, like half the songs are completely reworked with like totally different beats.
Really?
And the other half, it's like tiny tweaks. So it's really interesting to hear what Sean changed and what he mostly left relatively alone and just kind of enhanced and spiced up a little bit.
Wow.
So that's not an experience. Maybe we can make I'm not going to commit to making a Spotify playlist, but that's something somebody could do.
Someone who doesn't hate that website can do.
Probably.
Yeah.
But that's an interesting listening experience to have if anyone's interested in that, or just play the 20th Anniversary Edition. That's cool too. But yeah, we will be back. I think next week I'll be talking with Corey about the next set of Mr. Furious, Mr. Signal songs. I swear we're gonna get through the catalog by the 21st anniversary. If I keep pushing, we're gonna make it. I feel like maybe by September.
Like 10 records at a time too. That's the thing that's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I keep adding. We're up to like 84 now.
Wow. That's crazy.
All right, enough shop talk. We love you all. Take care. And we'll see you next time on Dat Fury Radio.
See ya!